G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dyl, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros. Firstly, I love seeing that intro every time now, the NRL Fantasy Show. It's great to see it's back. Look, we're excited. We've partnered with GameDay Squad once again to bring you everything you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League in 2026. And boy, are we succeeding. Look, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. It is Teamless Tuesday. It has dropped. It is time to get in to take a deep dive into everything NRL. There's been a spate of injuries. Look, there's a lot of suspensions, buys as well, causing a bit of havoc for some teams. We've got some pretty difficult matchups for some key players too. So we're going to have to dig deep, and hopefully we can find some unreal picks for everyone watching along, as well as catching up tomorrow on YouTube or Spotify and Apple. Stu, welcome, mate. Before we get into those positional previews, let's go around the grounds. How were your results for round 5?
Yeah, g'day, Dyl. G'day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, as always. Mate, we say the best thing about GameDay Squad is that clear all button, or that clear team button. And last week, we didn't want to spend very long on the around the ground slide. In fact, we wanted to get through it as quickly as possible. Both eliminated from the cup, no top 20 finishes. Gee, it's funny how quickly things can turn around in 1 week. After that clear team button, I had a big hard think about my team selections, had a big hard chat with the group of players in my collection, and boy, did they deliver. As you can see there on screen, everyone. First in Classic, first in Challenger, first time at the top of the leaderboard this season. After a couple of pretty poor weeks in a row, I'm glad I finally got things right. And hopefully that means, a couple more still to come.
Yeah, that's right. And as you can see, the crown on your head, great way to bounce back. And I'm feeling like I might need a bounce back. 7th in under 24s, 20th in champ. I thought I was going along quite nicely. A couple little hiccups there, but obviously Tallis Duncan killed it in that under 24s competition. Look, obviously today, a bit of unfortunate news around with the Sunday Showdown, the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown, a bit of an error. The dev team swapping over. It means that, unfortunately, last round did not count. So if you're not around that, make sure you check your emails. You've got a free pack there from the boys to say sorry. A lot of us played plenty of Tigers and Eels in that last game, and everyone's been sort of counting their scores up on their fingers and toes. And I think we would have got pretty close. I know some of the in the AFL chat as well, people were talking about some really big scores. So look, we've got to put a line through that and move on, and hopefully we can bounce back in that FantasyBros Sunday Showdown as well. We'll be coming back to you live on Sunday as well. We obviously missed that last one with Easter. Look, before we get into anything else as well, just a big shout out to a couple of our mates in the Classic Cup. Obviously, if you've been following along, Stu and I were eliminated, as you said, but our good friend Wet Bandits, he is absolutely killing it. He's only been playing for the last couple of years, and he is dominating in that Classic Cup at the moment. He's got a pretty tough matchup with Such as Fife, who we know from a number of the other competitions as well, a number of the other sports. So make sure you keep a close eye on that matchup. Wet Bandits up against Such as Fife. Also, a massive good luck to Game Day Tom. He's a bit of a AFL nerd, but he's jumped across onto the NRL train. I don't know if anyone knows, but he's a big David Fafita fan. I don't think he could get 18 David Fafitas in his side, so he must be doing something right, though. He's also through to the next round, and he's up against Pikachu, who we're not sure who Pikachu is. If you are watching and listening, please hit us up on our DMs over on Discord or Instagram. We would love to know which coach that is, so we could follow along, because there's nothing like seeing Game Day Tom get bailed out of a Classic Cup for sure.
Pikachu, if you need a play, if you need a card, a gold or a platinum or something, reach out, let us know. We'll sort you out. Very interested, very excited to see who you are. Awesome. So just a reminder that we'll be coming live to you all every Wednesday evening. We'll preview who we think are the best plays across each of the games, across each of the positions, as well as the bench spots. We'll discuss the important start sits of the week. We'll reveal our consensus starter squad and which plays will be our salary pods for the week as well. We'll touch on all of the key players or the relevant players in the Stats Lab Primetime competition. We'll talk about FantasyBros Sunday Showdown, and we'll also give you plenty of opportunities to win some cards along the way. The Brodown Showdown is evenly poised. No one's been able to get an advantage yet. It's neck and neck at the moment, but the viewers, if they can select the right players, you can win plenty of cards. And just quietly, we've given away some pretty good players over the last couple of shows. Let's see if we can do that again at the end of tonight's show. So please make sure you're following us on all of our socials. That's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and tune in for some weekly winning advice.
Yes.
As you can see there on screen, Dyl, I'm just going to gloat for as long as I can because of how difficult it was to make the graphic last week when we were both eliminated from the cup.
Yeah. We don't want to see that again. I thought you were going to say how difficult it was to make the graphic that we posted up today of you with the champion side there, the classic win and the challenger win, but I'm sure that was pretty easy to do.
That was a stitch up by you, wasn't it?
Alrighty, let's get into the comments. We've got Sif Kanga here. Obviously, congratulations on a big week for the lads. Nice. Unfortunately, Sif Kanga posted earlier as well that he had quite a few Tigers and Eels in that Sunday showdown, so it was a bit of a shame there. Hopefully, you can bounce back there. Mel's Misfits, as always, the CEO of GameDay Squad is here as well. G'day, Mel, as well. And Sean Walkies, as we know him, he's replying to Sif's comments around a few of us had made sure we have cleared all. I think that's the big thing to remind everyone, particularly the Sunday showdown. I think a few people in the Discord the last couple of weeks have been getting a little bit caught out, thinking I'll just leave that till Sunday. But a few of the blokes have been locked because they play earlier in the week. It means you can't change them. So that's one of the first things you need to do. Clear that Sunday showdown team. Also, make sure you clear your primetime team. I was going through some of the played percentages today of primetime players. There's a couple of players still in there that are highly played in the side. Harry Grant is one of them who's not going to be playing on the Thursday or Friday. So make sure you go and check that out. Don't forget as well, if you haven't already signed up, there's plenty of time to do that. You can share in up to $5,000 worth of cash, as well as plenty of pack prizes. Go to GameDay Squad website, download the app, create your account, and use the promo code FBRL26. You'll get 3x9 player common pack straight away just for doing that. Plus, you can use either of our referral codes. So you just hit us up. You can get even more packs. You're going to get a heap of bronze packs as well. And if you complete all the steps in that onboarding experience, you're going to get another 3x9 player common pack. So that is going to get your team started for at least starter contender, maybe even into that classic side as well. Or as those zucchinis did last week, she did chuck in a Sunday showdown team. She'd finally got enough cards only after starting at the start of this season. Unfortunately, it just didn't quite go her way. But look, plenty of time. Plenty of rounds still to go, and there's every opportunity you might jag a bit of a win, just like Stu did last week with a couple of prizes as well. So almost $5,000, as we said, up for grabs. So make sure you get along, collect, coach, and compete with some of the best that there is to offer on GameDay Squad. Alrighty, let's jump into our analysis. Let's kick us off with the hookers, remembering that in our forwards position, we've got the hooker, middles, and edge. We can play one hooker, 3 middles, 2 edges, plus 2 bench players of any combination. So although there's probably only 1 or 2 hookers that we're really looking at this week, there might be an opportunity to play a second on your bench if you want to see some of that potential in some of these players. But I think there's probably one player that everyone's going to be looking at playing. Talk us through why you probably think Harry Grant's probably the clear out-and-out option this week.
Yeah, look, hasn't been a great start to the season for the hooker position. We haven't really got anyone jumping out of their skin and really putting their hand up to go to each and every week. It's just been those 3 guys, Cook, Brayley, Harry Grant, just about week in, week out. If you pick one of them, you can't really go wrong. You've just got to try to get the right one. And I think this week, the right one is definitely going to be Harry Grant. Statistically, Blake Brayley's got a really tough matchup there against the Roosters. I think they limit oppositions to about 20-odd points. For hookers, I expect Blake Brayley to absolutely demolish that 20 points. But it is obviously pretty telling there that hookers just aren't scoring well there through the middle. So, look, Harry Grant, the Warriors have been really poor of late. And I don't know if that's going to turn around. Maybe the inclusion of Luke Metcalf just maybe stuffed up a few things. And maybe that's the secret. He's out this week, obviously, and will be for a couple of weeks. Do the Wars turn it around? I'm not so sure, because the Storm have lost 3 on the trot. You just know that they're going to be up for this one. So I think Harry's going to be heavily involved. The Storm are going to have to bounce back at some point. They're far too good of an outfit. Yeah, they might have lost a few players from seasons gone past, but they're still one of the the top 4 teams in the competition. They're going to absolutely blow the Wires off the park, and I think Harry Grant is going to have a big say in this. So, yeah, he's an easy start for me ahead of Blake Brayley this week.
Yeah, I'm on board with that as well. And, yeah, as you said, up against the Warriors. This time last year, they played, I think, almost the same corresponding weekend, and the Warriors were pumped by, I think, 50 points. So I could see something similar after that matchup against the Panthers, where the Storm absolutely were torched, and I'm sure Bellyache will have no doubt given the team an absolute spray. Look, it worked for your team last week, so I would expect it to probably work for the Storm as well. It means I'm going to actually probably target several Storm players as well. So there's going to probably be a bit of a theme. It's not because I'm not enjoying what the Warriors are putting up at the moment. It's a bit of a tough watch, but as you said, there's obviously some opportunity there for a Metcalf-less team potentially to go back to what we saw of the first 3 weeks. But look, the Warriors are allowing 40 points to 40 GDS points to hookers this season. It's the 5th easiest matchup. We know that Harry Grant is dominant in that position. And if we zoom in just for the last 3 weeks, that average that the Warriors are allowing actually climbs to 47, which would have them ranked number 1. Put that in perspective, go back to Brayley in terms of their opponent. As you said, 22 GDS points that the Roosters are allowing only to hookers. That's Egan scoring 27 points in 61 minutes. That's Mitch Kenny scoring 29 in 80 minutes. And Marmazelis off the bench has top scored against the Roosters with 29 and a half points in 57 minutes. So there's obviously something there behind it. Obviously, Brayley is better than those players, but Egan was a fantasy relevant player for a long time. And we've used Marmazelis in the past as well. So that's quite telling, as you said. So I think it's quite an easy one just to go with Harry Grant. The other option there is Damien Cook as well, who is strongly considered, but I'd probably put him more leaning towards that point of difference, only because he continues to frustrate. We said it last week, that roller coaster of minutes, you just don't know what's going to happen. I don't think Flano even knows what he's going to do sometimes with his team, the way that they're playing at the moment. But look, he had 70 minutes the week before in round 4, and he was staying on the field when Little was on as well. Then round 5, his minutes dropped to 58. A trend starting to emerge for Cookie, and it's hard to know what's going to happen. But if his minutes are 70 or more, he scores 50 plus. If his minutes drop below 60, then his score drops below 40. So it's quite hard to know what's going to happen, especially with the way the Dragons are playing at the moment. The Seagulls aren't the easiest matchup. They're allowing 37.5 to opposition starting hookers. But if you feel like Cook might get that 70 minutes for whatever reason, maybe there's an opportunity there. But I think it's a very simple one in Harry Grant. And maybe another point of difference that you might want to touch on, maybe Reece Robson or even the return of Brandon Smith potentially.
Look, Brandon Smith is definitely going to be just an easy watch for me. We've got him there on the fade list just because some people might be excited to see him back and might remember, some of his glory days for the Storm there, where he was, one of the best hookers to select in your squad. So, no, I think we'll watch him. He'll share some minutes with Marmazelis. I don't think he'll be very appealing at all during the season, but maybe during those bye rounds, if you've been sleeping on Brandon Smith and you don't have any of his cards, maybe look at grabbing some of them just in case. Damien Cook, definite play for me in the Stats Lab primetime competition. I think he's the standout hooker there. We just need to see him get that 60-plus minutes. I don't want to get cute in the hooker position, though. Reece Robson, look, they come off the bye, so they should be fresh, ready for this one. He gets the 6th best matchup there against the Sharkies. They're giving up 40-odd points to hookers, so it's not the worst. But don't overthink it. I think Harry Grant's the standout. Yeah, I agree. And interesting, Seth Kanga's going Grant, but he's not sure yet. Maybe Brails, if I feel like the Wars still will potentially break that 17-game curse. I don't think that's going to happen, mate, but we will see. He's also saying that potentially Cheese could be on the list next week as a pod. We obviously, as you said, watch and wait and see what his minutes are like and whether he does stay on the park for 70 plus as well, I think would be ideal from Brandon Smith. As you said, don't overthink it. Pretty easy one. Harry Grant, I think he's going to be highly owned. Just make sure you don't have him in on your Stats Lab primetime competition because they are not playing in that. Alrighty, let's move on into the middle forwards. And we touched on it last week. Alex Twirl, talk to me. What's going on? Well, if you haven't been playing Alex Twirl in your sides, this is the week that you've just got to get him in there. Take a bow, Alex Twirl. He's the man. He's the GOAT of the middle forward position now. 4.9 points clear ahead of the number 2 middle in terms of averages, and that's teammate Terrell May. Look, Terrell May's minutes have been down somewhat from last season, but his work rate has gone up as a result of that. So obviously he knows that's a set plan for them. He's going to play less minutes, but it means he can go harder for a shorter period of time. And that's working to some degree for them. And Alex Twirl there is just picking up the slack. I think it's clear that Benji really trusts him. And he could probably go 80 if he really wants. In fact, I think he did go 80 on the weekend, given that they played Golden Point. There's about 10 to go in that Easter Monday clash, and Terrell May was on a really nice score. He was still there with 10 on the field. He took a hit up, and then he put his head down and he starts bolting over to the sideline. I thought, oh no, he's, Twil's on the bench and now Terrell May's not going to get any extra points as well. So their points are capped there. But Alex Twile had been off the field for 4, maybe 5 minutes, and he was the man that replaced Terrell May and came back on there for the rest of the game. So when he's getting through so much work in terms of tackles, run meters, he's added the offload to his game now, and he's seeing 65 plus minutes with the ability to go 80. There's no surprise that he is atop that middle forward position. And I think that's one of the easiest straight bat plays of the weekend.
Yep, I definitely agree. I think that combination that he has with May, I think it's only going to extend as well. We talked about last week potentially Twal eating into some of May's work, but we saw on the weekend that wasn't necessarily the case. They each have their own skill set to bring, which, as you touched on, I think Twal's is going to be that ability to have plenty of run meters, but also look for that offload as well, which we love to see. And I think it's a pretty simple one with our strongly considered, similar to what Sif Kang is thinking, and Twal, May and Haas.
Yeah.
The concern, obviously, is Haas getting some reduced minutes. The injury, the shoulder concern, injury, whatever you want to call it, didn't help on the weekend. But is there any thought around potentially his middle partner, although Carrigan does play on lock, Carrigan is someone maybe that comes into the side for you as well as a potential point of difference. He's played 80 the last 3 weeks against the Storm, Dolphins and Titans. As a result, his GDS average across those 3 games has increased to 53.3. The issue, I think, for Paddy Carrigan at the moment, he's killing coaches with missed tackles. He's combined for 18 missed tackles in that last 3 games. So that's 18 points that's gone begging per game. As we know, 3 demerit points for every missed tackle. It's quite difficult to pick players that are going to have a lot of missed tackles, but is he someone that you're looking at? And potentially, obviously, the Stats Lab primetime competition is where you're definitely going to be looking at that combination of Haas and Carrigan. But is there any potential for him to come into one of your pod sides?
No, there's not. I don't know. It's just not really striking me over the last couple of seasons as a really fantasy relevant player. And I think it is just because of, the combination of the missed tackles, but also the ball playing. Obviously, he's a bit of that Isaiah Yeo type mold, but he doesn't really break the line too often. He doesn't score tries. He doesn't offload the ball too often. So his ceiling's always really capped, and his floor can be really low if the run meters are down and the missed tackles are still pretty high. So no, I'd be far more, if I know that Payne Haas was only getting 50 and he was still far more likely to pull him out, given that we know he does have the upside. He looks for an offload so frequently, and he just rips and tears when he's on the field as well. So, look, they're putting up similar numbers anyway if Haas is getting only 50 minutes, but it's just the upside that he brings. And someone like Stefano Utoikamanu, which I have there on the pod list as well, even him, he's a head and shoulders clear of Carrigan for me, just because of this ceiling that he does have. Yeah, the scores will be pretty close throughout the season, but we're going to have, some of the spike weeks from Stefano just because he does have that power game. He can break tackles. He can offload. We've seen it enough, particularly at the end of last season. We've seen it once to start this season. He had a nice big score of 70. He had a 62 in there as well. His last 2 games have been pretty poor, but that obviously coincides with Melbourne's form slump. So I think the Storm are going to bounce back, and they're going to need their big man up the front to bounce back as well. So Stefano, for me, is in real pod contention shout for me this week.
Yeah, and we touched on Stefano last week as well as being a fade because of that matchup with Penrith. And I guess we saw that as a result. We saw that the minutes drop below 50, and that's obviously a result of what happened there. The hard one then is going to be, do you play someone like Stefano Utoikamanu with that positive matchup against someone like Jackson Ford that has also seen a bit of that form slump from what we saw from the first 3 games of the season, coinciding with the Warriors not having a couple of good games back to back. So there's a lot of decisions to make, and it's really, for me, as you touched on, it's all about that upside. We've seen Payne Haas, we've seen Terrell May, we've seen Utoikamanu break through the line and run for 40, 50 metres potentially if they're needed to. They've also got that short ball where they can put a player through the line as well. So I think that upside outweighs the opportunity that Carrigan has playing 80 in the middle, or that lock, sorry. I think it also outweighs the opportunity that someone like Isaiah Yeo is seeing. He saw his first 80-minute game last weekend against the Storm in that massive blowout victory, but it was his lowest score of the season. He had just 44 points, so just over half a point per minute on the park, which I don't think we've ever said for Isaiah Yeo for as long as I can remember. It's never been that low. The positive, I guess, out of it is 43 tackles and 150 running meters. That's a 57 base, but we just didn't see it, whether it was the missed tackles, the errors, etc. We're just not getting enough from Yo. So for me, it's someone that, along with Tino, we're going to continue to fade. Tino Fasuamala-Awi. But Isaiah Yo's also on that fade list for me until we see something a bit more dominant, a bit more fantasy relevant. I think those players that we've touched on in terms of strongly considered, and then in that point of difference in Udekamanu, I think it far outweighs the potential that Yo has purely based on what we've seen previously.
Can we get a close game with Penrith Panthers, please? So Isaiah Yo actually has to roll the sleeves up and actually, get in and make 4 or 5 tackles a set because the game's on the line. We're just not seeing Penrith stretched by any team. They just scored 50 against the Melbourne Storm, and gee, that says something, doesn't it? So I think that plays a big role. The fact that they're cruising to wins, yeah, he still might have got 80, but he wasn't needed to do too much either. They're shifting the ball to their edges where they're scoring plenty of points. It's just not happening for him through the middle. So, yeah, absolute fade for me until, something changes. And it might not.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a bit like what Jake Trbojevic used to be like. We used to talk about him as potentially a little bit fantasy relevant, and then it was just a catch and pass type game, that sort of link up play, and he never really got any more relevant there. He's taken a few more hit ups, but I think Yo is starting to get to that mold already. We've talked enough about middles. There's plenty of good options, but let's jump into the edges because this is probably maybe the most exciting position I think that we can talk about. Yep. And there's probably 5 or 6 really on that strongly consider. On screen, you can see Kai Pearce-Paul, Dill Lucas, and Olakuatu are our 3 that we're strongly considering. I really like KPP this week, and not just because he had a big game last week where he offloaded the ball at will and got over for a try as well, but he's been on fire over the last few weeks, averaging 64 GDS points this season in only 4 matches. Only one of those games going under 50 GDS points. He's averaging 37 tackles, 100 running meters, 3 tackle breaks for a base and power over 55 GDS points. And as we've seen, he loves an offload. He loves a line break, and he doesn't mind setting up some tries as well as scoring it himself. So I think he's got every opportunity to have a massive game against the Knights, who are giving up on average 47 GDS points to right edges. Is it as easy as going KPP and then following it up with Dill Lucas on the other side of the ball, even though the Tigers have been a little bit better at restricting left edges to only 35 GDS points? Is that sort of where you're thinking as well? I'm finding it quite tough at the moment with Dill Lucas. I don't know what I'm doing yet with him, but is that an easy slam dunk for you?
Yeah, I think it'd be funny waiting to the last game of the round for those 2 strong edges to take the field. You might want to... you might not have to worry too much about being down on a leaderboard, knowing that you've got 2 pretty decent edges still to play. But, yeah, I think it's a really nice 1-2 punch. I think KPP provides a lot of upside. Yeah, if he isn't breaking tackles, if he isn't getting the arm free for an offload or scoring tries, we are going to see that mid-40 to 50-point score. But, look, Dill Lucas sort of scores that regardless of the opposition or of the matchup. He just gets through so much work, particularly through his tackles. He's obviously a pretty handy ball runner. And if the Knights do get anything going, he's sort of the first guy that can break the line or set something up there on that left side of the field. So we've seen a number of edge forwards who rely on attack have really low floors, but Dill Lucas has been going along quite nicely despite scoring just the 1 try for the season. And he scored a 60 in that match when he did score the try, but he also spent 10 in the bin and had the demerits, obviously, from the sim bin. So we just need to find any sort of attack from Dill Lucas, and that sort of 50, 55-point score can rocket up to the mid-60s or even a 70. So I like that as a bit of upside and a bit of safety. But I think we could, have all of those 5 players from there as strongly considered, because Heilum Luki and Noah Martin are just getting things done, aren't they? Noah Martin, particularly just with his tackle numbers, close to 60 tackles. Again, the Raiders aren't doing anything positive on the field. They're just doing a whole heap of defense, and he's the guy that just loves to tackle. I think he goes to sleep dreaming about tackling. He asks for tackles for Christmas, and he just makes so many of them. And he's going to find his way over the try line at some point as well. He's a pretty damaging ball runner, and he's been close a couple of times. I think held up once or twice. That 60-point score can rocket up to 70 at some point as well. We haven't even talked about Heilum Luki yet as well. I'll just touch on him very quickly, and then you can tell me which of those 3 you like the most or which of those 4. But I think Heilum Luki's got the best matchup out of anyone here. He hasn't scored a try since that 72-point performance in Vegas where he did score a try, but I think signs do point to a really big Hilamuki game here. He gets the depleted Broncos. They're without a number of players. And they also give up the most GDS points in the competition to both edge forwards. We've seen how destructive teams have been on that side of the field, on the right side of the field, where he does play up against the likes of Ezra Mam and Piakura. So you can bet the Cowboys are going to go there frequently. He's got Tommy Dearden feeding him the ball, and Tommy Dearden knows when to give him the ball and how to use him close to the line. So I think he's got a tremendous amount of upside. I did hear, though, that Ezra Mam was struggling a little bit at training. I think that's actually a bad thing for Hilamuki if Ezra Mam is out and Hilamuki doesn't get to run over the top of Ezra. But we'll have to wait and see what happens there on Friday. But 5 huge options. We can only fit a max of 4, 2 on field, 2 on the bench. If you have to leave one of those out, who are you leaving out and why?
Oh, it's such a tough call. I think at this stage I'm leaving out Noah Martin because obviously we do get to play him in the under-24 competition. We're going to load up on salary there. I also think just quietly that he loves to tackle because of the mallet. I think that's what it is. It's all about the mallet power that's giving him that tackling ability. Just on Mam and Piakura as well. Fingers crossed Mam makes it through into that game so that we can see Hilamuki run over the top of him because combined, Mam and Piakura have missed a total of 37 tackles together to start the season. And they've allowed 3 tries down their side. So Hilamuki could be in for all money this weekend up against the Bronx. Obviously, they're down on a couple of troops as well, with Walsh potentially being out for a little bit longer term than maybe what was predicted to start with, based on a couple of posts from Reese. So all the best to Reese. Hope that he recovers well. But yeah, Hilamuki's definitely there. The other player that I really like is Olakuatu. We sort of were thinking about fading him last week and ended up playing him obviously in that the primetime competition. And lucky we did have that stats-led primetime competition, because otherwise I don't think I would have got a piece of his 100-odd points that he scored. It was absolutely damaging, which we hadn't seen this season, really. And look, I'm going to put it completely down to Foz being the man behind that and really using Olakuatu like he should be used. And we haven't seen that for a long period of time. They're also up against the Dragons, who are working super hard to ensure Coach Flanagan's the next to be fired in the ring around of coaches. I think they're giving up points, everywhere across the park, but in particular, they're super vulnerable down their left side defensively. So Olakuatu on that right side, I think he's going to just rip and tear. Dragons are allowing 63 down that to that right edge. So I think for me that it might be actually a fade Lucas and play KPP, Ola, Lukey, and maybe bring in Martin. I'll just sort of see how that goes. I'm just a little bit nervous about that matchup with the Tigers, where they're only allowing 35 GDS points to left edges at the moment. I know we've talked about Dill Lucas as being this matchup-proof player, but we also talk about Jacob Preston being a matchup-proof player, and we've actually got him on our fade list because I just feel like he's a complete out-and-out fade now. I just don't see the upside in Preston like we once did, where he was getting a whole lot of base and power and then also had that upside of tries. There's a bit going on with the Doggies as well. I think from the sound of it, Burton's a little bit upset. It sounded like that it was Galvin's decision to make the swap a couple of weeks ago with Critter and Burton, and I don't think Burton liked it too much. So I'm just not quite sure how they're gelling there. And we know the Bulldogs need a big few games, but I don't think I can trust Preston at the moment with that. So I'm going to fade Preston, and I may even fade Lucas, who would probably be our 2 most played in 2025. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a tough call this week. But I think KPP, Olakuatu, and Hilamuki are the 3 that I'm definitely keen on.
Yeah, can someone let us know what's happening with Preston? Still averaging just shy of 50 there, which, isn't terrible, but far from the man that you just plug and play just because of how reliable, how safe he is. I guess that was how Mole Olakuatu for a period of time last season as well. We didn't want to go anywhere near him just because he wasn't getting the points done, and similar there for Jacob Preston. The Dogs have to sort themselves out at some point, but I think the Penrith matchup just makes it so easy to leave Preston out. And I didn't think we'd ever see him on the fade list, but hey, there we go.
Yep, there it is. Let us know if you're fading Preston as well, or if you've got any start-sit questions, maybe a 50-50 matchup that you want us to discuss, and maybe find some data to help you with that. So let us know in the comments. Alrighty, let's jump into the halves. And look, before we get into the halves, massive shout out to Stu last week, steering us in the direction of Jake Clifford in the potential point of difference player. And I think we challenged anyone to show us if they played Jake Clifford over like Nathan Cleary, which Zoe Zucchini's hit me up in the Discord again. And twice, but she played Jake Clifford as the pod option, played over Cleary, and was rewarded with that massive game from Clifford. So unreal there, mate. What do you reckon? Can you steer a couple of coaches into another good option this week with the halves?
Yeah, there's a bloke that plays halfback for Penrith in Cleary. if you've got one of his cards, I reckon you put him into your side, and I think he'll go big this week. No, I think it's Jahrome Hughes this week. Look, he doesn't have the biggest average there on the screen compared to a number of other halves. Look, we've got Tanner Boyd and Jaden Campbell both sitting there above 70. Jahrome Hughes averaging just 54, but I think I really like Jahrome Hughes. And again, not sorry to rag on your boys, the Warriors again, but it's just what's happening on the right side of the field against them in recent weeks. And yes, I know it's the Lukey Metcalf scenario again. He's not there. Maybe everything reverts back to the first 2 weeks, which I'm sure you're hoping for. But we saw Adam Dewey score 85 2 weeks ago. We saw Nicho Hines back that up with an 82. And Jahrome Hughes is going to be on that same side of the field, coming off 3 losses against a Warriors team that, are pretty sore and sorry after a couple of bad losses themselves. So there's no reason to assume Hughes isn't going to play a key role in this massive Storm resurgence. And gee, if your suggestion of maybe a return to that 50-point loss from last season rears its ugly head again, I think this is a big blow-up game for Jahrome Hughes, and I need to have a piece of him, even if that's at the expense of someone like Jaden Campbell or Tanner Boyd, who does get to steer the ship around without Lukey Metcalf. That's where obviously he excelled in the first couple of matches for the season, but that matchup itself is tough enough against the Storm. So, yeah, it's Hughes for me alongside Cleary and Hines. What do you think of the Hughes shout?
Yeah, I really like it. And look, as long as the Storm put on 49 points against us, I don't mind. They can do that. It's the 50 that I'm worried about. The 50 means we can't win the premiership. So as long as, 49 points, and stop there, please. No, look, Hughes, I think he's probably going to be my number one alongside Cleary. Obviously, Cleary's matchup proof. We know what he's like. He just scores GDS points for fun, as do a lot of the Panthers at the moment, the way they're playing, particularly Thomas Jenkins. But I think Hughes is going to be right alongside him in terms of that massive game that, as you said, Hines had a big one. Adam Dewey, although he's a right-sided half, he pretty much plays anywhere now. Just go and watch that Eels game. I think he popped up in every position on the field. But I think, just for me, Hughes is looking way too good. I want a piece of quite a lot of that attack on the right side as well. So Joe Chan's going to have a big part of my under-24 competition. I'm going to put a bit of salary onto him as well. Just the likelihood that Hughes can put a short ball close to the line and he can fall over for a try is just a really good shout. But there is a little bit of question mark over whether it is the Metcalf concern or the Metcalf list team that are actually going to stand up and play something different. We'll have to wait and see what that eventuates to. But if you are keen on that sort of stat and having a look at someone like Tanner Boyd, just go and have a look at the difference between him playing with Metcalf and without. Obviously, the last 2 games he's played with Metcalf, Boyd's averaging 47.5, whereas when he partners with CHT, his average is 87.7. That's Tanner Boyd. That is massive. Add to that the Storm, they've actually allowed an average of 58 GDS points to right halves. So Tanner Boyd could be this really perfect point of difference for a round 6 side, where a lot of coaches are going to go with the classic Cleary, Hines, Hughes, or Cleary, Hines, Campbell, as Matty P has said in the chat as well, that he's going to run the Campbell. Maybe it is an opportunity to slide yourself across to the Tanner Boyd if you think the Warriors are going to bounce back. Personally, I'm going to hedge my bets and play the Hughes to destroy the Warriors. And if the Warriors get up and have a big win and Hughes doesn't score, well, then it's a win-win either way for me. So I'm happy to hedge my bets there. We've got someone in the fade, though, that you might not be too happy with, and it might be more for the under-24 comp more so than anything else. Ethan Sanders is a potential fade this week after having some really good games. Is he still someone you're going to look at for the under-24 competition? Are you going to switch across to Strange now that he looks like he may be a little bit more dominant, or is it just a matchup this week against the Rabbitohs that you just don't want to touch at all, purely based on how the Raiders have been performing?
Yeah, I think it's so much easier not to play any Raiders at all. I think I've got them wrong over the last 3 weeks. I went back to Strange for the I went back to Sanders for the under-24 comp. I thought against the Knights, there might be plenty of points. He might lay on a try or two and kick a handful of goals. But obviously that didn't happen. Yeah, Ethan Strange has been a little bit better as well, but his games are hard to predict as well. he can blow up for a 70 when you're not expecting it and go, okay, well, he scored big against a team that's, really good defensively. So he should carve this weak team apart. And then he backs that up with a 32 or a 33 and then you're left super disappointed. So no, for me, I'm going to just ignore all Canberra Raiders halves for the under 24 competition entirely. But just quickly for that game over there in Perth, I think we've got a double header over in Perth. I think there will be plenty of points available there. So it wouldn't surprise me if Sanders does get a bag of try assists and goals this week now that I'm not on him. I've got a feeling that they're going to want to put a show on for the Perth crowd, and I think there's going to be plenty of 6 agains, plenty of fatigue, plenty of points. I think the NRL are going to want to leave Perth with the fans going, gee, that was exciting, that was entertaining. I cannot wait for next season when the Bears are in the competition. I don't think it's going to be that 14-10 slugfest that we might see from time to time when the game travels elsewhere. I think we're going to be a lot of points here. Probably going to come from the men from South Sydney and not the Raiders, unfortunately. But yeah, just if you're thinking about having a piece of one of those halves or anyone in that game really, or those couple of games there in Perth, I think it's going to be a massive amount of points.
Yeah, just quietly, Cody Walker potentially could be an option. The Raiders are giving up 51 points to halves down the left side. So Cody Walker, combination with Latrell and David Fafita, potentially could have a big game there. So if you're riding around that, wanting to put on a spectacle for the Perth fans, then maybe Cody Walker's an option. Alrighty, let's jump into the backs. And for those people that are new, remembering you've got 2 centers, 2 wingers, and a fullback, plus you've got any combination of 2 players. What you'll probably notice is we tend to use our fullbacks as those bench spots. But if we see something of really good value, potentially, there might be an option there. But fullbacks just seem to have the highest ceiling. Talk to us, obviously, Herbie Farnworth out this week because of the bye. Is it as simple as going the 1-2 punch of Ito and Dewey, or is Tola Kula really someone that's hitting our radar because of how well he's playing?
Yeah, I'm actually leaning Kula over Kale Iro. Definitely, probably, well, we can go wrong with Kale Iro. You probably wouldn't have thought that at the start of the season. He has got 3 scores in the 20s and 2 in the 50s. So we know that he can score well, but we'd probably expect to see, 4 in the 50s and maybe 140. The 3 in the 20s are really concerning. And for that reason, against the Roosters as well, I don't think he's a straightforward pick for me. And the fact that Herbie is out this week, I'm actually excited for some people maybe to put all their eggs in the Kale Iro basket and someone like Kula to outscore him. Look, his form, despite Manly's being really poor, Kula's form was actually pretty good. They smoked the Finns. I don't think that was just a one-off thing. Now that, like you said, Kieran Foran there at the helm, there's obviously a bit of a shift in attitude, and you saw that in that game. Obviously, we want to see it at least another game or two to make sure that actually is going to continue. We don't want them to fall back into their bad habits of how poor they looked at the start of the season. But yeah, you can really sort of see something's turned around there at the Sea Eagles. And look, Kula was excellent, even in some of those losses. He's had scores of 79, 60, and 71. But what excites me the most is not just the Dragons matchup, but it's the fact that we saw him move into that fullback position when Tommy Turbo left the field for the HIA. Manly was so far in front that Turbo was put on ice and wasn't risked for the rest of the match. And that just meant Kula saw more time at fullback. And that's a great thing to have in your side, that you don't just have his, electric pace and footwork and ability to break tackles and score long-range tries for big GDS points, but if anything happens to Tommy Turbo, and boy, do things happen to Tommy Turbo mid-game, we now know who that man is that's gonna slot there into the fullback position. So we love our out-of-position players. Obviously, Dewey playing as a halfback. We can play him at centre. Tolo Kula is about a 33% out-of-position player now, with the likelihood of a Turbo soft tissue injury and then the shift to fullback. So, yeah, a couple of things there. The matchup, his electricity. He's up against Val Holmes and Sedu too on that edge. Gee, they've been pretty poor defensively, both individually and as a pairing at the start of the season. I think two sort of just back in there out of necessity with Sloan at fullback now. I think the Dragons, are in all sorts. So this is the match where Kula goes bang again. I've definitely got to have a piece of him, but I need Kale Iro just in case he does something pretty exciting for the Sharkies.
Yeah, and you touch on that matchup for Kula up against Val Holmes, who's on our fade list for a very good reason. He's missed 19 tackles this season, the most of any centre. So you can expect another couple of missed tackles from him there. I still like Iro. I think purely based on what we saw last week. It was against the Warriors. It ended up being quite a good game, to be honest, the Warriors-Sharks game. It was sort of back and forth. DWZ did all he could to make sure that game was nice and close. But Ito did work quite hard there and was rewarded. The matchup against the Roosters isn't as bad as you might think as well. The Roosters are pretty good at limiting a lot of positions on the park, but left centers, they're allowing 41.3 GDS points. So it's somewhere near the middle. It's probably closer to higher in terms of easiest matchup for Ito there. So I don't mind it too much, but yeah, it's hard to go away from Cooler, knowing that I hate to say it, but knowing that Tommy Turbo is just another injury away from spending a lot of time on the sideline. The HIA, it didn't look great, although luckily it was a Category 2 and he's back this week. But yeah, I've really relied on Cooler in every game so far this season, particularly in the under-24 competition, where I think I've played high rarity from him every game, which has meant I'm up near that sort of top 6, top 5 position at the moment in that season long for the under-24. So yeah, I really like what Turtle Cooler is bringing to the team, and I think we touched on last week. You said how great will the matchup between Cooler and Averillo be? Just purely on pace, and I think there was a couple of times where they had a crack at each other, which was great to see. Look, a couple of pods potentially. I really love Jackson Purdue this week. I think he's another great point of difference. Again, the Cowboys are on this roll of, I think, 3 games in a row, and it's probably down to a couple of players, one being Helam Lukey, one being Purdue, and then the other being Drinkwater, that we're going to touch on a bit later on as well in that fullback role. The Broncos are the 4th easiest matchup to left centers, allowing 41.4, and Purdue is going really nicely with that 46 average. He's making 11 tackles, 160 odd running meters per game, making 3 tackle breaks per game. That's a base and power of 36. And then he's got some opportunities where he's really looking to break that line and potentially get over for a try or two, as we've seen from him already. So I think there's every opportunity that Purdue has another big game against this Broncos side that, as we've touched on already, there's a bit going on for the Broncos. They've had a couple of good wins, but they're starting to lose a few troops, and it might be a big matchup here for the 2 Queensland sides, where the Cowboys might just get one over the top of the Brisbane Broncos. So I'm pretty keen to see Purdue. The other one that I really love potentially is Dane Gagai. We saw a massive game from him last week. If you want to chase those points, do so, but it's at the risk of potentially a lot of demerits. He's amassed 37 tackle breaks so far this season. Dane Gagai, that's the most of any centre, but he's also missed 16, 3 behind Holmes that I've just touched on. He does have the 2nd easiest matchup, though, for right centres against the Tigers, who have already given up 71 to Tom Chester and then a 42 to C&K as well, who's not a known centre. So there's every opportunity that Dane Gagai could back up his massive score from last week and reward coaches again in that last game of the round. Is either of those 2, Purdue or Gagai, a player that you're going to look at in some of your pod teams?
Gags, definitely for the Sunday Showdown. He was a feature in my side last week. Unfortunately, yeah, those scores didn't go through. So I think everyone's going to be back on Gags this week, and he won't be too much pot in that competition, unfortunately. I love your assessment of Purdue, but I think Tommy Chester is in a similar conversation there, playing in the same team, just on the opposite centre. He hasn't shown the same level of attacking upside just yet, but their averages are still identical. Purdue's done that through 4 tries. Whereas Chester has only scored the 1. So he's breaching that gap, with far superior tackle numbers. His tackle breaks and run meters are higher as well. And now he gets that right edge matchup there against the Broncos left. We've talked about Lukey as a pod. I can throw Chester into the mix there. That's very left field. But I think he's every chance of going massive. His base for a young player with limited experience is exciting. Let's just hope he can find a bit more in attack.
Yeah, and the good thing is, I guess, that we've got an opportunity to play Purdue in our under-24. We've got an opportunity to play Chester in the Stats Lab primetime competition as well. So there's definitely some opportunity to diversify your teams if you don't really want to take that risk on one of those players in your full round squad. You've got a little bit of a leeway there in some of those special competitions. And as you touched on, the Dane Gagai shout last week, with you playing him in your Sunday Showdown, you probably would have got close to winning that whole thing. So there's plenty of opportunity when you take that risk and potentially put some salary on some of these point of difference players. You've got a bit of upside there and the chance of winning $1,000 or $5,000 as well. depending on that competition that you're playing it in. So yeah, I love that there's special competitions that we can diversify, because I'll be doing that for sure. The Tom Chester shout's a great one as well. Hopefully Lukey and Chester can combine. Alrighty, let's jump into the wingers. Before we do, just catching up on some comments. I love that Sif Kang has still got the faith in the Wars. Wars for the dub. Got to keep that faith. Yeah, no doubt. Sif Kang. And then Mel, the only way to get hold of Maddie P seems to be through the Fantasy Bros YouTube channel. Mel asking Maddie P to reply to her DMs. I love that. And then Luke Skip, a little bit late, but mate, just in time. Thanks for joining us. Stewie's had some unreal internet so far, so hopefully you don't stuff that up now. All righty, let's jump into the wingers. And look, we've got 3 really good options on screen, but I think it's hard to pass up on 2. And that's been the theme of tonight. I think that there's some really good options, but there's 2 clear ones. And then there's a whole bunch of point of differences that we can talk about. And obviously the 2 clear ones are the out and out front runners at the moment. Suafai Longo playing out of position in that fullback role. We put a line through him last week, but he still rewarded coaches with a big score. And then Tommy Jenkins, I thought I'd put the curse on him by playing him for the first time, but once again, he crosses over for 2 tries. Is that just Tom Jenkins normal now, or just 2 tries, and anything above that is just some good money?
I don't think Tom Jenkins likes odd numbers. He's either scoring 2 or 4. We haven't seen him score 1 or 3 yet, or 5 for that matter, if you want to get technical. But look, if he keeps scoring 2 tries, yes, we did see a 30-point score when he did score 2 tries, but we're also seeing these, 78-point performances against someone like the Melbourne Storm. You cannot, look beyond that. And a lot of people sort of thought, the Melbourne Storm matchup might be tough. He might score, but is the points going to be there for him? Maybe not. Look, he was in all of my sides just because it's so clear that Penrith is moving that ball to the left as frequently as possible. Casey McLean is getting better and better each and every match. And look, it's working for Penrith. So they're going to keep going there. And keep going there and keep going there. And Milky Jenkins is the man that's profiting. Look, the Dogs don't have Stephen Crichton there on that right-hand side of the field. So, that defensive side is their weak side. I think Penrith are going to continue going there. It's as easy of a slam dunk as anything else this week. And just quietly, that Suafai Longo didn't, that last-minute try, you can't call that a good pick by coaches. I think the game was well and truly done. Penrith were thinking about their ice baths and what they were having for dinner that night, and Sua just sort of skips on the outside and scores an easy try to boost that score up to something that was that you take for playing him. He wasn't in my team, but I definitely was a bit filthy when he scored that. There would have been a lot of indication if he had stayed on that 30-point score, which we were anticipating.
Yeah. Always frustrating when you don't have a player and you see that last-minute try, those junk points. But you fist pump when you are playing them and you get some junk points from anyone. Dom Young there as well as a potential strong consideration. He's quietly gone about his business. I guess he's been overshadowed by Tom Jenkins' try-scoring record. But Dom Young's doing something very similar at the moment. And the Knights, as a result, are sitting near the top of the ladder as well. They're playing some unreal footy. So I think someone like Dom Young could come into equation. Probably more so for the Sunday Showdown for me, more so than across the full round. But there's this weird upside-down world happening where To'o is no longer even viewed as a potential pod. And then Karaz there as well as a massive fade. It's a far cry from a year ago, the same time last year, where we were playing To'o and Karaz and we were playing Preston and Lucas. It just shows the changing nature of fantasy and the need to evolve so much and be, in with the stats and making sure you're following along with what's happening on the field as well. Look, I think coaches are going to be flocking to Jenkins, and just having a quick look at the percentages. In terms of wingers, the 2 most highly owned are Suafai Longo and Thomas Jenkins. The 3rd most owned is Jermaine Asako. So if you haven't cleared your team yet, make sure you do so. But Thomas Jenkins, only 27% owned by all teams across all standard competitions at the moment. So there's still some potential point of difference there. But the thing for me, it's so difficult to look anywhere else outside of those 2. To'o could be a point of difference. Maybe the Dogs are allowing some points to right wingers. That's some 40-plus games there as well. Dom Young had that 92-point performance, but it's really hard to jump off Tom Jenkins at the moment, the way he's playing. But if you do want to get a little bit cute and a little bit different, Jesse Arthurs could potentially be that big point of difference. We've seen him move to fullback. We do love an out-of-position player, we've said multiple times. Is he someone that you're looking at, or is that going to be more a prime-time play for you?
there's no way I can look at him over Saul or Tom Jenkins with the form that he and the Penrith Panthers are in. But absolutely for the Stats Lab primetime competition, I'm really interested to see his ownership. It should be pretty high, getting a fullback that we can play in the wing position and a fullback playing for a handy side of the Broncos. Yeah, they are down on a few troops. And look, if Reynolds doesn't get through the training this week, and even if Ezra Mam doesn't take the field as well, obviously that's going to be a bit of a blow for them. And then you could always reassess. But look, Arthurs was pretty good in that position last week. He scored 60 points. He has had some really nice matches at times when he's had to fill in at fullback. He'll get through plenty of work, and fullbacks roaming both sides of the field are always capable of a try assist or a try themselves. And there's a world where he can do that against the Cowboys. So I don't think it's the worst shout as a pod if you don't have him, Tom Jenkins or Saul Fa'alogo card, but certainly in the primetime competition Friday, I'll absolutely be playing him.
Yeah, definitely. Look, a question here from Sif Kanga. With Critter out, will Karaz see more ball? To be honest, I don't. Yeah, maybe, but I don't really care. To be honest, they're up against the Panthers. that I think that's enough. That any player against the Panthers, I think we're just going to put a line through them each week. I do hope that Karaz sees more ball, and I hope that potentially that means that for future rounds where Critter may be out longer term, depending on what happens there, Karaz might become more of a viable fantasy option. But yeah, at this stage, I think any player up against the Panthers, I think it's an easy fade at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, let's jump into fullbacks. And I mean, we could probably spend 20, 25 minutes just talking about the fullback options that we have this week. On screen, we've got 3 strongly considered in terms of Edwards, Turbo, and Latrell. Points of difference, though, they probably should just be in that strongly considered section in terms of Drinkwater and Teddy as well. Is there any clear out-and-out favourite there from the fullback position?
Yeah, I think you're right there about Teddy definitely being a strongly considered just because of his pedigree. Scott Drinkwater, probably a bit more of a point of difference. Obviously, good matchup, been scoring well, but he is the guy that can have a really low game, obviously dealing with the injury as well, but he's going along quite nicely. So I think you're pretty keen on him as a pod, but in the strongly considers, I think Tommy Turbo, while he's in form and while he's fresh, I think you just got to keep rolling him out. And this is a perfect week to throw some more salary on him as well, up against the Dragons. Really poor. Yes, something has to turn around for them eventually, you'd think, but look, they're without Clint Gutherson now as well. And while he's not, and the player that he was, he's definitely, pretty good around the group and with his chat and stuff. So defensively, so I think they're going to lose a bit there with it just means Tommy Turbo having a bit more success either through the middle or down either side of the field. So yeah, he's a standout for me. Latrell Mitchell just keeps getting things done despite playing in the left center position. Obviously, the goal kicking does help there, being one of the the few fullback goal kickers. But Dyl Edwards, I just can't seem to get him right. I think this will be the week that he goes big, but I seem to play him when the matchup on paper and the stats say it's a good matchup. He just doesn't seem to get it done. But then he just has this big game against a team where I don't expect it, and then I am just chasing his points the next week. So I think Turbo and Latrell, to summarize that, Turbo and Latrell, absolute yes. Where are you going in addition to that? Can you talk me into Edwards or are you going to go somewhere else?
I'll try and talk you out of Edwards and into Drinkwater. Edwards is up against the Dogs with probably a little bit of an easier matchup than some of the other potential players, but not by much. The Dogs are allowing 47 GDS points on average to fullbacks. The only really shining light is KO Week scoring 70 against them in round 2. Other than that, it's been quite low, as you can imagine, to get it back down to that 47 points. So for me, Edwards, yeah, I can't get him right either at the moment. Those tough matchups, he seems to go well. Sometimes when the game is said and done and it's a 50-point scoreline, he hasn't done as much as what we would have expected in that kind of game. So for me, it's Drinkwater, and I think he's probably near the top of the fullback options for me. The Broncos have allowed an average of 56 GDS points to opposition fullbacks. That's the 4th easiest matchup. According to the Stats Lab. Make sure you get along to the Stats Lab. We'll talk about them more in a moment. The only restriction that they've had on a fullback so far is Keanu Kinney, who hasn't really found his form yet this season. They allowed only 27 points to Keanu Kinney, but before that, they allowed a 72, a 78, a 61 and then a 42 as well. I think the Broncos could really be lassoed by the Cowboys this week, and I think Drinky's going to be the big reason behind that. And I think it's no fault or no fault from coaches to have a look at how the Cowboys have played the last 3 weeks and notice that Drinky's averaged 65 points in the last 3 rounds, and the Cowboys are now on a 3-game winning streak. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Drinky playing some of his best football that we've seen across the last few seasons, I think there's a really good reason why the Cowboys are on fire at the moment. And I think Drinkwater's going to have a big thing to say in this game. And I can see that again happening, knowing that the Broncos allow plenty of points. The Drinkwater, again, has plenty of options in terms of attack, loves to get those meters as well. So I think it's a really good play alongside your Turbo and your Mitchell. Just on Mitchell, I talked about him last week just being this absolute vibe play. I think he's just going to be a vibe play every week. You know that he's got something special in him. It doesn't matter what his matchup looks like, whether he's playing the easiest matchup or the most difficult matchup. He's going to score points, and he's going to do it in style, in Latrell, fashion. As you said, he does have the goal kicking on his side as well. So I really can't see a world where Latrell doesn't have a big game. It's going to be obviously just come down to probably that matchup and whether you think he can overcome that matchup. He's got the second toughest matchup on paper. Last week, he had the second toughest. He still ended up being the second highest scoring fullback. That was 78 GDS points. So look, that average rises above 65. And now he's got your boys who are coming off 4 losses in a row. So look, they've been pretty good to that left center spot, but it's Latrell Mitchell. So I think it's pretty easy to go that Mitchell Turbo combo, and then maybe the Drinkwater option as the third.
Sun will be out in Perth on the weekend. There's going to be plenty of points. I think it's going to be free flowing and open footy, and that's when Latrell Mitchell shines. Matty P here has said Turbo, Latrell and Teddy.
Yeah.
He'd be keen on Drinky if he was goal kicking, and absolutely. I think that's a massive point there as well. If the Cowboys showing ability to score tries, going up in threes is a really important job as well for those players, just to add a bit more safety and floor to their base. And that's why, Jackie Clifford has been going along so good. Yeah, he's been playing some great footy, but ticking up along in 3s, 6, 9s, 12s, 15s is definitely handy week in, week out. And with Scotty Drinkwater not getting that, it just makes it harder for me to get to him. Obviously, I know he's such a good player and the matchup suits. It's maybe just that little thing in the back of your head. Well, he's not kicking goals, so his ceiling's capped. So I don't mind what Sif Kanger has said, going the 3 T's, keep it nice and simple there when you search and just type in the letter T and the 3 best fullbacks will pop up there. So yeah, I think there'll be the winner this round in some of the competitions are probably going to get all 3 fullbacks correct. And I think if you go one of these guys and they have a low, we saw Teddy, what was his score, about 22 2 weeks back? If you pick one of these fullbacks and they go a low 20s, that might be, possibly tough for you to claw back.
Yeah, and look, on Teddy, really interesting. He's up against the most difficult matchup for fullbacks against the Sharks. They've allowed the second least number of points with 41. So there is every potential that he might end up with another 22. But when we go across the stats lab, have a look at the percentage of players in competitions across all standard competitions. Latrell and Tom, top of the list with 55 and 51% respectively. Reece Walsh is still in there in 46. Look, I know it's Wednesday, another 24 hours before the round kicks off, but get Reece Walsh out of your side, then Teddy, then Edwards, then Hammer, and then Scott Drinkwater. So there is a potential pod play there, but it looks like a lot of coaches are going through T's over any other options at this stage. I'm just a little bit nervous with the Sharks and how they're defending against fullbacks at the moment. But, Teddy is probably in that realm of matchup proof at times as well. We talk about it plenty of times. He runs across the field, makes 20 meters and breaks 4 tackles and just gets those tackle break points. So happy with that. More than happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're thinking about Will Kennedy after a nice game last weekend, I'd say no, he's not going to do that back to back. He's probably not going to do that again this season. So that's why we've got him in the fade list.
No, keep him in your prime time or your Sunday Showdown when they're available to play, and that's about it. Alrighty, let's jump into our primetime consensus team. And look, here it is. It is our primetime consensus competition team from the Stats Lab Primetime competition. A massive shout out to the Stats Lab team for their ongoing support of the Fantasy Bros. We've mentioned them a few times. We get all our stats from the Stats Lab. So make sure you head across to the statslab.app and check out all the awesome tools they have available. They've got player stats from every game. They've got matchup strength, plenty of matchup data as well. You can go into each team and have a look at the points that they've given up individually to particular positions. They've got player comparisons. So if you want to have a 50-50, you're not sure whether you want to go Teddy or Edwards, go and chuck them into the player comparisons and see what the Stats Lab spits out. There's plenty of analysis tools to help you dominate GameDay Squad. So make sure you get around the Stats Lab. And it's pretty clear this week. I think there's going to be a lot of Panthers players. There's going to be a few of their, the Seagulls, and then there's going to be one Dragons player in there. I'm a little bit nervous about going Mitch Kenny. We obviously saw Freddie Lussick have a decent game, but for me, it's going to be Damien Cook in the middle there in that hooker role. We've gone Isaiah Yeo and Payne Haas up front. We've got Paddy Carrigan in there as well as the lock. Then Helam Lukey and Olakau'atu on each side of that edge, which is a pretty good-looking front forward six, if I say so myself. Our halves, Jakey Clifford, we expect him to go back-to-back, have another massive game, along with Nathan Cleary. Then Purdue Cooler, we've already talked about both of them a lot tonight. Jesse Arthur's on the wing, along with Tommy Jenkins and Tom Trbojevic. Once again, it's another team where that could almost be your full round team. Maybe take Damien Cook out, put Harry Grant in there, and you've probably got a winning side.
Yeah, and a few pods there as well. Like Purdue could go off. Isaiah Yeo could have a big game finally, and Lukey won't be very popular, I don't think, or Haumole, you wouldn't have those two in a side. Plus the guys you're throwing on the bench as well. Yeah, gee, that looks like a pretty good lineup, hey?
Good looking side. And lucky you can own all of those diamonds as well. Well done, mate. Alrighty, into our consensus starting 13. So these are the blokes that we think are going to be the number one players in each of their positions. Again, as you see, it's our starting 13. We don't have any bench positions available here at the moment for you. Our forwards, I think it's pretty stock standard. The two Tigers boys in Twal and May, between Brayley in the middle. There's a toss-up between Brayley and Grant, but we're going to stick with Brayley potentially. I'm would argue that Grant's going to have a bigger game, but we'll have to wait and see. We've gone with Dill Lucas as well. I think maybe we'll see. Dill Lucas is still just there. Olakau'atu is very close as well. Kai Pearce-Paul, I think, is going to dominate. And then Payne Haas. Imagine if Payne Haas locked the scrum. That would be ridiculous. Then we've got the pairing of Cleary and Hines. Obviously, it's a very, very strong pairing there. Ito and Dewey. I think Ito just over Tolakula, but I think I could be persuaded either way. Failongo and Jenkins, nice and easy. And then Tommy Turbo. It was so unfortunate with Tom Turbo on the weekend, by the way. He was looking for a pretty decent score. I would have said he'd be close to 100 points. And unfortunately just knocked himself out. But crazy to think that both of our fullbacks that were going head-to-head in the Brodown Showdown both got knocked out and were off the field with plenty of points left on the field. Oh, talking about Brodown Showdown, here it is, the 3-0 victory. Finally, I got one in the bag, the 3-0, the Cleary Jenkins. And I think you joked about I should have just played Edwards just to play all the Panthers and just have the clean sweep. But I didn't need it. They did outscore Campbell, Sacco, and Walsh. So if you did get on Dill as the winner of Brodown Showdown, you are going to be on the wheel. And Stu, while you're getting that wheel up, mate, for everyone to see, I'll remind everyone, once we show our Brodown Showdown team in a moment, all you need to do is comment who you think is going to win. Dill, if you think Dill, Stu, if you think Stu, and you can be like one of these lovely people who nominated me to be the winner and now have every chance to win some Unreal cards. So spin the wheel and let's see who's winning some cards today.
Can take out a classic and challenger competition, but can't win a Brodown. Can't even get a point in the Brodown Showdown.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Oh, where's he going to stop? Oh, man, so close. But it is Roshni.
Love it. Roshni, unreal. Alrighty. Let's. I've got a 9-player common pack. Let's give Roshni all 9 players. Been supporting us since the start of the season, so it's great to see Roshni out and about. Also, just quietly, Sif Kanga is going blind again. I think he's nominated blind each and every round,
and he's got it right.
Going
I think
for
too.
Myself too. Alrighty, just waiting for my screen to come up for everyone to see, and I've got the 9-player common pack loaded and ready to go. Alrighty. Good luck, Roshni. Let's see if we can get you something good out of this common pack. Alrighty, kicking us off, we have a Luke Garner silver. We've got a Tommy Gilbert silver. The gold is Blake Steep. We've got a Cam Munster plat, so that's not a bad card.
Ooh.
Potential pod there on the left side up against the Warriors. Victor Radley, silver. Jackie Whiten, silver. Kickout, gold, if you think he's going to have a good game against the Panthers, and then a Griffin Neves. So make sure you hit me up, Roshni, on Discord, and we'll get those cards to you. Congratulations. Alrighty, and as I said, all you need to do is comment who you think is going to win the Brodown Showdown. Is it 3? It's 3-all. Unreal. That is great. So that was because we had the Vegas rounds where we did separately.
Yeah.
If you're wondering, that math doesn't quite math. That is 3-all currently. So it's anyone's game coming into this week. Alrighty. So if you think Adam Dewey, Damien Cook, and Tile are going to outscore Ido, Grant, and May, you comment Stu. If you think my 3 are going to outscore Stu, remembering that is individual head-to-head. So the centres are playing up against the centres, the hookers against the hookers, and the front row or the middles up against the middles. Okay, it's not a combined score there. So make sure you are commenting who you think is going to win. We've got one going for me so far in Sif Kanga, so it's great to see him going blind again. And then we've got a couple of Stews straight in there with Mel and Walkies as well. So it's great to see those comments coming in. Remember, you can... What's that?
You've got 2 centers in your team. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. You put in the wrong team A. I love it.
Team A.
I love it. Don't make that mistake again, please. That's lovely. I love that. We'll fix that up. All right, Tony's Legends. Great to see Tony's Legends again. We haven't seen you for a while, mate. Hope everything's going well, Tony. Looking for Stu to get that bounce back. Awesome work. Remember, you can comment all the way up to the kickoff of the final game on Sunday afternoon. So make sure you comments in either on our YouTube channel watching this back or over on our Spotify as well. Talking about Spotify and Apple, you can catch up on everything there as well as watching this back on YouTube. Remember, we're coming to you each and every week on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Then the AFL boys follow us with their preview from 7:30 onwards. It's going to be another cracking show with Pity, and he's got Janeth as a special guest tonight. Once again, Pity and Haz have been dominating the leaderboards just like you have as well, Stu, so make sure you get around them. Don't forget as well, we've got the Sunday Showdown coming to you this Sunday. Should be a cracker. I'll be down the Gold Coast, so I'll be feet up with the coast breeze coming through. It should be a lovely afternoon of footy as well. So fingers crossed we have a good matchup this week and we have no issues with the dev team. No, hopefully it's all sorted and we can have a great one. Stu, thank you very much, mate. It's been another unreal show. I will catch you next on Sunday. Everyone else, we will see you very soon. Good luck for a massive round and hopefully you get all your teams sorted across all of the competitions. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Dyl. Good luck, everyone.
Cheers.